My name's Jamie Collins, and I live here in Carroll County. So I'm working with Chestnut Creek Schools Jam program, and I work for Carroll County Schools as an elementary teacher at Oakland School and Gladeville School. And I grew up with the music, love it. Still learning a lot myself, but I really enjoy working with the kids, and they help teach me a lot. So that's good.
They do. Jamie's a good music teacher. We're also in a
Thank
band together
you.
and whatnot, but
Yes, playing the Blue Ridge Girls.
well,
You guys hear me okay? Sorry,
I'm gonna try. Yeah, I'm trying to switch as well here.
yeah, I can hear you.
My AirPods have had all they can take today, so I had to go old school.
Right. The other two of you want to quickly introduce who you are? I know that Bobby was on the last call and Bob has been on some other ones, but we've got some multi-state representation so far for sure.
I'm Bobby. I'm here in Avery County, and it's definitely a winter wonderland. It's been crazy the past 2 days, and I'm soaking in the information, praying that we can get our group off the ground again. So, and I appreciate every person on here. I've gotten little tidbits along the way that are very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Bob, do you want to?
Okay, I'm Bob Townsend in Grundy County, Tennessee. We had just gotten started, got one semester in last fall and into the spring semester. And of course, with the pandemic shut down, we were teaching in school after school, but in the school buildings, and we haven't been able to do anything yet this year. The school has been in and out of session between in person and virtual, and it's been crazy. So hopefully we're planning on the fall if things work out.
I understand that. Yeah.
I know that, Galax Jam has not been able to have any programming this year, so there's a lot in the same situation. But today we wanted to talk about basically the Paycheck Protection Program, which might relate as far as your fiscal agent and how they are going to be able to stay afloat during COVID-19. So as far as like the school system, Bob, probably not, but as far as the Grundy Arts Council, I can see how it might be relevant if there are staff there. So if you want to relay any of this information back to them.
That was what I was wanting to be able to at least tell them about the video, give them a rundown on what's going on or something.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find ways to help folks however we can, and this seems to be a topic of some confusion, of course, because it's coming from the government and nobody is really sure, how these things work. And you see the word, Paycheck Protection Program, and then you see the word loan, and people automatically say, well, we don't want to deal with a loan, if that's something that we have to pay back. But I'm going to have Anthony here help me explain the forgiveness process and why it's a lot simpler than one may think going into it. We'll take a look at the applications and that sort of thing and figure out how organizations can get connected with the right folks to pursue this if they think it is ideal to help them get through this time. So basically, the Paycheck Protection Program, as I understand it, otherwise known as PPP, has destroyed most bankers' lives for the past almost year. And they help folks, small businesses, nonprofits, and as I understand it, even independent contractors to apply for loans that are ultimately forgiven, but they are based on your monthly payroll expenses and can also include other costs such as your benefits to your employees, rent, mortgage interest, utilities, and that sort of thing. And I expect Anthony to also stop and interrupt me at any time that I say anything that is not correct. But as far as JAM, as the parent organization goes, we applied for the first round of PPP back in June. And of course, it was announced a couple of months prior to that. And my first feeling on it was, oh, you know, we should be okay. I don't want to take money from anyone else who might need it, that sort of thing. And then after looking at it again a couple of months later, we started considering how much, for example, our fundraising had been affected by COVID-19. For example, we were doing no festivals, no events, no student performances where we generally do raise some money and awareness about JAM in the general region. We did not do a spring mail solicitation to our donor list. So that really affected the income in a bad way. And also just the general idea that many donors are now unable to continue their support due to different financial downturns. So under those premises, we decided to go ahead and apply for a loan. And the application was fairly easy. We are in the middle of the forgiveness part right now, which is a little bit more lengthy, but I just want to encourage folks that all of this can be tackled and done. And it's a really great resource for those who are experiencing hardship right now, not being able to do regular activities, fundraising and that sort of thing, but still want to be able to employ their folks. So, do we have any questions so far? No? Okay, so they have extended this, they're calling it the second draw, right? And even if organizations like ours who applied and received a loan during the first draw, we are also still eligible to apply again. There are a couple of different stipulations, but it is also designed to reach organizations who did not apply the first time. And I've just heard a lot of, not a lot, but from a few people, you know, just misconceptions. One of them was that, oh, well, we only have one employee for our organization, so we're not eligible. So that is not true. Or the fact that independent contractors are not eligible, and that's something I need more information from Anthony from. But we have this time until March 31st is the next deadline. And basically, after looking at the initial information, your next step is going to be to get connected with a lender, which is generally going to be a bank. And I can share my screen here. And is that working? You see the Paycheck Protection Program? Yeah. Okay. So here's the general website. And it is run, of course, through the Small Business Administration, through the United States government, the United States Treasury. So there's information for the first draw and second draw, as well as the forgiveness. And where's the thing? Okay, here we go. So as I said, your first step after getting your preliminary information will be to get connected with a lender at a bank. So for example, I put in Independence, Virginia's zip code, but I can put in one of yours. Bobby, what's the zip code in Banner Elk? Or
28657.
so this pulls up that the First Community Bank in Banner Elk is working with PPP, as well as a bank over in Spruce Pine and one in Boone. you can sort of see there that you have some options.
And you might be getting to this eventually, Brett. You said you're in the process of doing the forgiveness part. How involved is that, or have you got into it far enough to know?
Anthony, how involved is that?
Well, I tell you what, let's talk about the forgiveness part here in a minute. Let me let Brett finish her spiel, and I'll do a kind of an overview of everything from a banker's perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm relying heavily on Anthony, who is he's our former chair of the board of directors, and now he's our treasurer. But he works for Skyline National Bank, so he is our financial guy. I'm still on the learning curve as far as financials go, but so once you get connected with a lender, they can help you through this process. And just for example, here is the application, and it's really pretty basic. The number that you get your calculation from is you go back into, I guess, the previous year, which Anthony might have to correct me on this, if folks could now use just all of 2020 to get their average monthly payroll and other qualifying expenses, and then you multiply that by 2.5%. And so you get the loan amount that you were requesting. You answer some questions, do a little bit of paperwork, and the lender that you're working with might require some extra information from your organization if you don't generally work with them. But that's it. I mean, check it out. Not bad, huh, as far as government forms go.
Really?
But I also read some interesting facts about PPP as far as in the first round, 75% of the supported businesses and organizations had 9 or fewer employees. So they're really supporting small business corporations. And 9 out of 10 of the loans were for less than $150,000 too. So there might be some misconceptions that this has been all for big business and to bail them out, but that does not seem to be accurate at this point. And they actually had $130 billion left over in August. So that's why they're doing a second round. So don't feel bad about asking for the money. That's what I'm getting at here.
Mm.
Okay, Anthony.
All right. Hey, I tell you what, Brett, let me share my screen with everybody right quick.
Okay, do I have to give you permission for that? I wonder.
Yep. So just to introduce myself, like Brett said, I served as chair of JAM for about 6 years, and back serving as treasurer now. And I work here at Skyline National Bank. That's my day-to-day job, and I lead our PPP efforts here at the bank. Last year we did, I've got about a 5-6 person PPP team here at the bank, and last year we did just north of $81 million in PPP loans between North Carolina and Virginia. We did do a few over in Tennessee as well, right across the line, and we dipped into South Carolina at times as well. We helped about 1,300 businesses, and we've also been working with them through the forgiveness process. So the PPP program is a really great program that the SBA put together in March of 2020. It launched there in early April 2020. And the goal of the program was to help businesses and nonprofits and religious organizations maintain payroll during the time period of the pandemic, when there was a lot of shutdown orders and a lot of businesses that were unable to operate at normal activity because of CDC and HHS policies and procedures. A lot of restaurants that were falling victim to the shutdown orders was able to maintain their payroll and keep folks on payroll, off unemployment during the pandemic for 8 to 24 weeks, depending on how the funds were spent by the business. So there's certain eligibility certain eligible expenses that the businesses can use the funds on. Primarily, they changed the rules recently, but primarily folks are using it on payroll, rent, utilities, and business mortgage interest expense. And I can talk about those in just a little more in depth here in a minute. I think we just had somebody else join in on the call, but the program ended in August of 2020, and the federal government invested another 200 some million dollars through the Economic Aid Act back in January to relaunch the program mid-January for businesses to receive either a first draw or a second draw loan. So if you didn't receive a PPP loan last year, you can apply for what's called a first draw PPP loan. If you received a PPP loan last year, and your business is still experiencing difficulty, you can apply for a second draw PPP loan as long as you meet the reduction requirement of 25% or more in sales loss in a quarterly comparable basis or an annual comparable basis. So that's helped out a lot of individuals, businesses, nonprofits, religious organizations, and just want to kind of give you a quick overview of the programs. And there is a common misconception out there about independent contractors being left in the dark, and that's not true. We've done a lot of loans for independent contractors. I've worked with everybody from journalists to marketing contractors to musicians. We've done a lot of musician PPP loans. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of a high level overview, and I'm going to send my email address to everybody right quick. If you have just a general correspondence kind of question, I'm happy to answer it. Here's my email address on the chat. And if you're interested in applying with my bank, I'm going to put my email address out there too. Now, I will put a disclaimer out here that everything that I'm going to be talking about today is informational purposes and not legal guidance from Junior Appalachian Musicians as a regional parent or Skyline National Bank. It's just going to be informational purposes, pointing you in the direction of some information that you can use. I'm going to share my screen with you right quick. And suddenly my MacBook does not like Zoom. So hold on one second here. And it still doesn't like, there we go. So can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right. Cool deal. So I'm going to swing over to the Skyline National Bank website because this is a page I helped build as a PPP resource for everybody. So you're welcome to visit our website sometime. I'll put a link in the chat box here in just a second. But so the PPP loan, you're qualified based on your average monthly payroll times 2.5. So if you have payroll, your full payroll for the whole year of 2019 or your full payroll for the whole year of 2020 is say $100,000. I'm just using round numbers here, is $100,000. You would take the 100,000, divide it by 12 and times it by 2.5, and you would be eligible to receive a PPP loan of $20,833.33. And of course, there's some caveats to that, such as, adding in health insurance and adding in other certain employee benefits, and also making sure you subtract out if you have any employees that make over $100,000. And of course, a lot of those granular rules will be in some of the resources that I'll point you to. But the expenses, what can they be used for, the loan proceeds? Well, to be eligible for forgiveness, you've got to use at least 60% of the loan for payroll costs. You can use it for mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. That's for stuff that was in effect before the loan. I'm going to skip over refinance and EIDL because that just doesn't happen. And it also covers operational expenditures which can be accounting software that's used in the cloud, or inventory tracking software if you track instruments or something with a software program. Property damage costs, that was thrown in there in case your business or nonprofit had any damage from riots in 2020. And covered supplier cost is a little tricky, but the general idea of that is if you've had to buy a face mask for your employees, your workers, if you've had to buy a face mask or face shields or some plexiglass coverings for certain customer service points, covered supplier costs would cover that. So there's some links right here on what documentation is required. You're welcome to use our website as a resource point. But the number one thing is, like Brett said, there's a borrower application form that you'll fill out. And I imagine most folks on the call are nonprofits or independent contractors. So you would check the box here. If you were a 501c3 nonprofit or independent contractor, you would fill out your name, address, EIN, email address, your average monthly payroll. Like I said, if you had $100,000 worth of payroll for the year, you would divide that by 12, and that would be your average monthly payroll. You would times it by 2.5 to get your eligible loan amount, and you would list the number of employees. And then these boxes don't really serve too much of a purpose, but you at least want to check payroll. Applicant ownership. So nonprofit organizations, of course, they don't have equity interest owners, but you still need to list somebody here like the chairman of the board or the treasurer, secretary, or executive director. We need their name, their title. You'll just put a slash through ownership percentage. We'll need their social security number and their physical address. And the reason that we need that information is because the SBA requires what's called a beneficial contact, like a real person to tie that back to, unless you're owned by another entity. They want a control contact person that they can reach out to if there's a situation. And of course, the rest of the questions are just legal jargon. Some lawyer got paid a lot of money to fill all those questions in.
Hey, Anthony,
Yes.
what about if you don't have a consistent payroll amount? I mean, it's based on the lessons that are given. Let's say 1 month you might have $2,000 in payroll. The next month it might be.
Sure. So to discuss that, I would go to every organization that has a W-2 wage coming out, with the exception of an independent contractor, is going to have these Form 941s that they're filling out for each quarterly payroll period. And you're going to, I'll answer your question a little better here in just a second, but you're going to use this line 5C of column 1 here. So if that's $10,000, that's $10,000 for that quarter. You would go through, add up all the quarters. That's just a basic wage standpoint. If you have other employer contributions like health insurance, IRA, retirements, that kind of piece, you'll add those on top of here because their employer contributions are not taxable, so they wouldn't appear in line 5C. So you would add that together. Now, in your case, unless the business fell into what we call the seasonal category, you would be at the mercy of the annualization of the payroll cycle there. Okay. I wish I had a better answer, but there's a couple of areas where technicality falls in, and that would be one of those areas where you would kind of be stuck in that technicality of if you're a seasonal business and you're dormant 6 months out of the year, but you're operating 6 or 7 months out of the year, you would fall into a different rule set. But the general January to December organization that has reoccurring payroll, even if maybe in April, May, June, you had more payroll, or September, October, November, more payroll, it would all get clumped together, divided by 12 and times by 2.5. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And one of the misconceptions there is, the loan program was originally designed to get people through 8 weeks of payroll, plus a little bit extra to help with rent and utilities. So the question's always, if this loan is to help me with 2 months of payroll, why is it 2.5 times? So the extra 25% there that you get off your average monthly payroll, you can use the whole loan toward payroll. So you're getting an extra 25% off your average monthly cost. That would help you with those increases in payroll. So if you had a $25,000 PPP loan and 20 of it was to cover 2 months of payroll, you can still use that extra 25%, that extra 5,000 you're getting for payroll. You can use 100% of it to payroll, and you'll be just fine there. Okay.
All right, thank
So,
you.
so just looking at the application, the rest of it's just certifications, and all the banks are going to want, in general, if you're a nonprofit organization, they're going to want all of those Form 941s. If you are, if you have state unemployment reports, like if you're a Virginia entity, you would file reports to the VEC, the Virginia Employment Commission, for unemployment tax. And in North Carolina, you also have the same form that you would send off to Raleigh for reporting state wages. I always forget the name of that form, but for our friends there in Avery County, there would be a state form that you would turn into Raleigh as well. So the banks are going to want your 941s and the state reports. And if you're asking for additional funds for employer contributions to health insurance or retirement, you'll have to have something backing up that number. Okay.
Mhm.
So that leads into the next question. The next topic, and Zoom and I are not getting along right now. So with nonprofit organizations, that's really the standard basic of it for a first draw PPP loan. Now for independent contractors, because when it comes to what qualifies as payroll, that's W-2 employees, 1099 quote quote employees don't count in the payroll equation. So if you're issuing a 1099 to teachers or instructors that work with your programs, they as independent contractors would have to apply on their own. And back on that application, they're going to check the box independent contractor, and they're going to fill out their name if they have an EIN. Most people that are, musicians that are being paid themselves, for gigs, they're going to file everything under their social security number and not necessarily EIN. So you'll generally put your social security number right here, and everything else is still the same. You'll still say Anthony Edwards, owner, 100%, my social address, and I'll check the boxes on how I want to use the money. But for sole proprietors, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to fall back to your Schedule C. So here is just a blank Schedule C, just for example purposes. So if I'm an independent contractor and I'm doing fiddle lessons for a jam affiliate, I'm supposed to report my income that's been paid to me through a 1099 on my Schedule C. So if I've made $400 working for an affiliate, another $400 working for another affiliate, that's $800. And if I made $5,000 off independent gigs that I'm playing as a musician, that's going to bring me up to $5,800 that I'm going to put here on my gross receipts line. And after the accounting work there, I might come down here at the bottom, and that $5,000 might have ended up just netting me $2,000. And so as an independent contractor, I can take that line 31 that I just suggested as $2,000. I take that $2,000, divide it by 12, and times it by 2.5, which comes out to $416.66. I could have used a better number there. And that's what I would qualify for as a PPP loan. And we like I said, we've had a lot of Schedule C musicians that's came in and filed a PPP application as an independent contractor. We've helped a lot of them out. Our bank has done loans from $400 PPP loans all the way up to $3.6 million PPP loans. We've seen just a wide variety there. And as a community bank, that's our job, is to help the smallest of loan and the largest of loan that we can. And so we've seen a lot of these Schedule C individuals. So if you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, you're going to give the bank the application, a copy of your 2019 or 2020 Schedule C, depending on what's complete at the time. If you're using the 2020 and you haven't filed your taxes yet, then you would use a draft of your 2020, and you would need to certify to the bank that this is what you've planned, this is what you intend to file with the IRS at the appropriate tax filing date. You would also want to include copies of 1099s that you've received and a copy of a bank statement from February 2020 showing that you were in business of some type in or around that time. Okay, so going back here to the application, like I said, line 31 divided by 12 times 2.5 is the maximum loan amount. And for those independent contractors, they would just put a 1 there and fill out all the, check all the boxes appropriately and certify that they need this loan to stay afloat, and sign it and provide that to your lender with that supporting documentation. We've run into situations where some banks are requiring nonprofits to give a copy of their 990 if they have that available. So just be advised that some banks are asking that question. I know personally, I've not been asking nonprofits for that, but some banks have been. If you are a nonprofit organization that's already received a PPP loan, you would have a little bit of a different process. It would be the exact same forms, except you would be using what's called a SBA Form 2483 SD second draw application, which is pretty much the same thing I just showed you, except you're going to have to prove to the bank that you've had a 25% reduction in gross receipts. Okay. So if your gross receipts for the second calendar quarter of 2020 was 30% less than your second quarter 2019, that would qualify you for a second draw PPP loan of 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. Okay. If you are an independent contractor and you've experienced a 25% or more decline on a quarterly comparison basis, you would have to prove that to the bank, put it with this application, and you would be eligible for a second draw PPP loan as well. So one of the questions we've got a lot of is with sole proprietors, if you're an independent contractor, a lot of times there's a more minimal chance that you're tracking everything in, say, QuickBooks or some sort of program that you can easily provide a P&L statement out of. You are allowed by the rules of the SBA program to provide bank statements. You just need to circle and highlight deposits and total them at the bottom of each sheet and sign it saying, hey, this is how much I made this month. This is how much I made that month gross wise, and total it up to show the bank. And if you use our Skyline National Bank resource page here that we've actually got all sorts of information here, like how to calculate maximum loan amounts for first draw PPP loans and what documentation to provide. So this is coming straight from the SBA, straight from the Treasury. You can look up what type of business you are, and it will literally tell you step by step what you need to do and what you need to provide to the bank. The same thing on the second draw side on what counts as documentation for showing your 25% reduction in sales. So like I said, we've helped over 1,300 businesses last year at our bank get these PPP loans. This year so far, we're soon to help probably north of 300 customers between North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee so far. North of 300 individuals, and this year's funds are going to be, you have 8 to 24 weeks to use the funds. So if you exhaust the funds after 14 weeks, that's fine. Last year, they required you to use either an 8-week or a 24-week covered period. but this year you can use between 8 and 24 weeks for any business type, independent contractor, sole prop, religious. So that's a new little piece that they've got out there. So the number one thing, like Brett said, is, hey, we don't really want a loan. The forgiveness piece is very important to individuals. So when you take out a loan, I'm making up round numbers here. So if I take out a loan of $75,000, I get a $75,000 PPP loan, and I use it over 24 weeks time, and I use all 75,000 of it toward payroll, then I've got to provide at forgiveness. I've got to provide certain documentation depending on my situation. So I'm going to take the easiest route today, probably the route of least resistance here. And the SBA recently released a brand new form called a 3508S forgiveness form for anything less than 150,000, and that's loans of $150,000 or less is about 90% of all the PPP loans that's been done in 2020 and 2021. And so with this forgiveness form, you just fill out the information, just general from your loan documents you had the year before, or whenever it was done. You check the box if it's a first or a second draw loan. And you can use this form for 150,000 and under if you've been able to maintain your employee head count, unless you've had to fire somebody or somebody resigned on their own and you haven't been able to restore them yet. You'll be able to use this forgiveness application, key in how much you spent on payroll. So if it's a $75,000 loan and I used all $75,000 of it, it's going to look like this. And I'm going to initial these boxes and say that I've used it for eligible purposes. Everything I've said is true. I'm going to sign it, turn it into the bank. And what the bank does is, unless you're in a situation where you have to provide payroll documents, tax forms, all that good stuff, again, like you did application, the bank's going to review it. They're going to issue a decision to the SBA. And then the SBA, if they don't have any further questions, they're going to issue remittance to the bank, and they're going to pay off your principal balance and your interest balance on your loan through the date of remittance. And so the only issues you would have there is if you had a $75,000 loan, but you only use $60,000 of it, and you're expecting to pay the $15,000 plus accrued interest on that 15 off, then you would just be applying for 65, and you would just pay the rest off yourself at the end. So the forgiveness process seems tricky, but it's actually a lot easier than it seems. I know from my experience, we've helped over 400 clients get forgiveness on their SBA loans, and the SBA has been really quick to send the money back and pay off the loan. And it's really helped a lot of customers. And this new forgiveness form that they came out with earlier this year really takes a lot of the burden off of individuals that had $150,000 or below loans. As Brett mentioned earlier, JAM had a loan of north of $14,000 last year, and we used it all on payroll and utilities and rent. And we've applied with our bank to have that forgiven, and we haven't got the decision back on it yet, but we're expecting that anytime now, and that loan will get paid off. And we're already looking at possibly a second draw PPP loan for our staff, where we have a full-time director and a part-time director. So that's kind of my, in a nutshell, speech. Forgive me if I got too granular there. This is my 40-hour week job here, is talking PPP all day long. So I open the floor for questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have to the best of my knowledge, or I'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, there will be a test tomorrow.
Yep. We'll send a Google form out tomorrow with questions.
This has been very helpful. I will admit, I like Brett. I hear the word government, and it's like, oh my God, it's scary. But It'd be nice to get my program director a steady income.
Well, good. I hope that
You'll need to switch banks, Anthony.
Yeah.
All right, come on over.
I might do that sometime, but
yeah, you should. Well, I hope that you all are less apprehensive now and know a little bit more about the Paycheck Protection Program. If there are any topics in general that you all have questions about or think would be good for webinars, please let me know. I did send out a small survey a few days ago in the Google groups, but other than that, I don't think I have any more questions. I'd like to give a big thank you to Anthony for taking the time out to provide this information, which we will archive and put it up for everybody else to check out too. So hopefully it'll be helpful. If you'll look in the chat, you can also save the chat, but I'll send this out later too. It has all of the links that he was referencing and a few notes that I put in there while he was talking. So
I will say real quick that the new PPP program this year does expire on March 31st,
Right.
or if the funds run out before. And as of January 31, 25% of the 280 some billion that's been set aside for PPP has already been used up. So they expect it to last through March 31 is what the SBA said on a call 2 weeks ago. But of course, that was a forecast 2 weeks ago, and a lot's happened in 2 weeks. But there still is 75% of the funding out there. But I would advise you to, if you're interested in a first or a second draw, to go ahead and hop on that and talk to your bank. Or if you're near a Skyline National Bank branch, give us a call and we'll help you out.
which those are down through North Carolina now too.
Yeah, I think Lenore, Hickory, Boone, we're in that area now too. I think that's closest to Avery. We don't have anything in Tennessee right now, Bob, but you can call us.
All right, y'all. Anything else on any other topic while we're all still here? Okay.
I'd like to say thanks for putting these together. It certainly made me feel a little more like life is going on in other places, because we certainly are just, the Arts Council's kind of, waiting to see what happens next. But
Yeah, we all are, and just hoping that things can happen next
yeah,
in a quick fashion. So
yeah.
absolutely. Like I was saying, I do want to try to check in over at Chestnut Creek and just try to see what the game plan is. I mean, especially, I know that you said some stuff about summer. I do think it would be good to do some stuff for summertime. So I'll try to go check in with them here in the next couple of days.
thank you, Jamie. We got to keep at it. That's sort of part of the reason for this type of stuff too. In addition to just the information, it sort of keeps the momentum up and keeps people thinking about JAM, even if they're not working right now. So, all right. Very good. Thank y'all. Thanks to Anthony, especially.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Anthony.
And no problem. Thank you all.
See ya.
Good rest of the week.
See y'all.
All right.